Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with the Soul. I'm Rita Hickman, and I'm owner of Inspire Massage in the Chicagoland area in northern Illinois. And today you find me on a very rainy day, rainy fall day in northern Illinois. And I actually love weather like this. So I'm so glad that you're joining us, and I'm glad you're here. For the next 2 weeks, we're going to be covering the basics. We're going to be covering topics about how to actually dig yourself out of the holes and the trenches of not feeling good and mental health, and the really practical, on the ground, boots on the ground sorts of things that you can do. Good morning, Michael. Sorts of things that you can do that keep you in a really good mental health state. So as time has gone by, people have realized that mental health is really connected to physical health. And it's not something that people taught us when we were younger. Hopefully it'll become a much bigger movement. And doctors still aren't talking about it. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. So when I was 30, I had everything going for me. You know, I had, hi, Michael. I had everything going for me. I had, you know, a great house. I was just married. I had, you know, a beautiful wedding. I had a job that I loved, running a nature center, and things were pretty great for me. But the problem was my mental health was way off. I woke up every morning and I felt terrible, and I felt angry, and I just, you know, this rage would come up every morning, and I could almost feel it click in. You know, I'd be sleeping, everything would be fine, and then my consciousness, my awake mind would just get just a little bit further, and it would kick in. Suddenly I was in that bad mood, and it was almost like clockwork, you know, and I'd enjoy those few moments of peace, and then just I'd get a little bit more awake, and suddenly I hated the world. You know, and I had great people around me, people who were kind and caring, and all I could think about was how mad I was, how horribly mad I was, and how terrible I felt. So, you know, I dealt with that for a number of years, and finally I got the gumption up, and I went and I saw a doctor, and I said, hey, what's going on? And he pronounced, you have IBS. And I said, okay. And he gave me some medication, and I was on my way. So yesterday I talked about how one of the major changes that happened around there is that I met people who touched me on deep emotional levels, and that took care of some of my symptoms. But when I'd gone in and seen this doctor for IBS, I said, look, I'm looking for natural ways to deal with this terrible feeling in my stomach and my gut. I'm looking for natural ways to deal with how I'm feeling. And he says, you know, I really don't know anything, but, you know, here's the medication. So I said, okay. And it got me thinking, you know, it got me thinking that days that I woke up feeling better were days that I drank water before I went to bed. And so I thought, well, I've got to try something. So I started to make a set mindset of before I went to bed every night that I would drink, you know, at least half a glass of water, if not a full glass of water. And I started to see that the next day I would feel a lot better than I expected to. And I didn't know what all of this had to do with anything. I mean, I couldn't be that dehydrated, could I? I knew I was always low on water, but it couldn't be that bad. Then I ran across this great book, and it said, you're not sick, you're thirsty. And this was a second foundational piece for me of changing and taking control of my mental and emotional health again. So I read this book, You're Not Sick, You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. And it talked about how a whole slew of physical issues and physical problems were based on the fact that we weren't getting enough water in our lives, that we weren't staying hydrated enough. And they gave some great suggestions. And one of them was drink water before bed. Another one was as soon as you wake up, drink water. You know, and I started to do that, and I noticed some great changes. You know, I noticed that, wow, I'm digesting better, and I'm not waking up ready to, tear somebody's face off. I mean, that's how angry and upset I was every day. And then I fell off the wagon, which everybody does. You find something that works for you, and then it starts working and you feel better, and then you forget and you fall off the wagon again. That's so totally normal. We all do it. And so I had to look at not just I'm not getting enough water, but I had to look at how can I get more water? How can I work with how I work and get more water? Because I was raised in an environment where my well-being and my health, I wasn't taught to really value that. And so I was taught to work hard, to focus, to finish your job, that taking care of your physical self and physical well-being was one of the least important things that you could do, because I was there to help the people around me and achieve and get good grades and be successful and keep all the balls juggled. And I think that's how a lot of us were raised. We were raised to stay in that that logical, rational mindset and put things like eating good food or taking time to be quiet and enjoy ourselves or even play. Those sorts of things were last on the list. What was most important is that you got your job done, and only after you got your work done, then you could consider taking a break. So all of those sorts of things really built up that mindset. And I said, okay, this is the mindset that I live with. So what am I going to do about this? And that's when I started on a path of looking for success. How do I set myself up for success? How do I make sure that I get what I need? And in this case, it was water. How do I make sure I get what I need so that I can feel better? Because clearly drinking enough water and staying hydrated has a big impact on my emotional and mental health, and on my digestion, and on my skin, and all those wonderful things. So I started to investigate. One of the things I investigated were chia seeds. And what I found out is that chia seeds hold something like 10 times the amount of water than anything else does. And so when you take chia seeds and you soak them, then you can add them to anything. Then it's like a slow release water into your system. One of the problems that You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty talked about was how when we first start drinking water, our body's not used to it, and it doesn't absorb it right away. What it does is you drink it in and you flush it out. How many times have you done that where you said, you know what, I'm going to drink water, and you start drinking water and your body doesn't seem to absorb it. It goes right through you. And that's what would happen to me. I'd start drinking water for a while and then I'd quit. And then I'd go, oh yeah, I need to. And so my body, my cells weren't being bathed in water on a regular basis. And because of that, because my cells weren't absorbing the water, I was still dehydrated. So the chia seeds that I found, and I just found them at a local health food store, I started to add to oatmeal in the morning. I started to add to things that I was drinking. I started to add them to recipes, because when I would eat chia seeds, then I could drink a lot of water, or I could have a lot of water. The chia seeds would absorb all that water, and then as they digested, they'd release the water into my system on a regular basis, so that I wouldn't just have a high of hydration, and then a low of dehydration. I was able to keep it fairly steady, which is what our body really likes. It likes to be bathed in all of that water, because the water is necessary for our electrical system to work, to keep everything in balance, to flush through things. And for me, what was most important was my digestion. When I kept my hydration up, then my digestion got so much better and my eating habits got better. So chia seeds were one of the first hacks that I started to use. And I just started to add it to all sorts of things that I could think about. And that made a really big difference. But you can only eat so many chia seeds, because I started to notice, oh, wow, well, it's kind of like eating a lot of nuts, eating a lot of chia seeds on the digestion, starts to have the same sort of problem. So I said, okay, what else is affecting whether I'm drinking water or not? So I thought, well, if I want to drink more water, maybe I'll flavor it. So I started with the whole drops and flavorings and crystal light and all those little additives to the water. But the problem is that didn't make me feel better either. In fact, that tended to make me feel worse. And so I said, well, why I'm drinking more water? Why do these flavorings, which are now I enjoy drinking, why am I not feeling better? It's because many of the flavorings have artificial sweeteners in them. And what the artificial sweeteners do on your body is anything sweet tells your body to release insulin. And if there's no sugar there, if there's no actual sugar because it's artificial, then the insulin gets, released into your body in floods, but then it's looking for something to work with, something to do. And so it sets up this craving for sugar, and it takes all your body chemistry and whacks it out. So that I would drink water, but it would flush right through me. And then I was hungry all the time, and which then made me irritable, which then affected my sleep. Because this artificial sweetener in all these drops and additives that, to make me drink more water, were having a negative side effect. And so I thought, okay, that's not going to work. So what's the next thing I can do to set myself up for success? So I looked at the things that got in my way. And it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I don't prioritize, or I didn't prioritize my physical health. I didn't value it because what I valued was helping other people and being there for other people. So I started to look at my habits, and I realized that I was more likely to stay hydrated if water was convenient, if it was easy to drink, and if it was everywhere, And so I started to check out what I enjoyed drinking from. And I realized I enjoyed drinking from bottles better than glasses. And other people are different. Some people prefer decorative glasses and things which are attractive. I liked bottles because then I could drink a lot at one time. Because if I was just going to sip water, there was no way I was going to do that. I was going to sip, and then 4 hours later, I'd have a sip again. And that wasn't helpful at all. So instead I said, okay, if I am more likely to drink water that is convenient, and while I'm doing something else, I need to put water everywhere. So I started filling up water bottles, and I put them in my car, I put them next to the TV, I put them next to the bed, I put them, at work next to my desk. I had water bottles everywhere. And so while I was doing something else, like driving, I'd be at a stoplight, and that's when I would drink the water. So I made it super convenient and super easy for me to drink these things. Now, one of the things you need to look at is if you've got a water softener, and I do. If you've got a water softener, it adds salt to the water. And if you start to drink more water, then you're also consuming more salt from your water softener. So for me, I moved to filling up big jugs of water, at my local grocery store or things along those lines, because the water out of my tap, because I was drinking so much more, had so much salt in it for me because of the water softener. Salt in water softeners is actually one of the big things in less urban environments that have a big impact on the environment. So, I thought if this has a really big impact on the environment, it's probably going to have a big impact on my body too. It's a lot more salt than we think. So I made a point to drink water that doesn't have all that salt in it. So then I thought to myself, well, I'm drinking more water, which means I should be able to get away with drinking other things. Okay, I should be able to have some soda. I should be able to have a martini or a margarita. And what I found is because those were such strong diuretics, because they pulled that water out of me, it was only in a balance. I wasn't getting ahead. I wasn't making any headway. And so I had to look at valuing what I drink. It's not I'm just drinking more water and then I still keep with the habits, the margarita or the martini or the or the soda, even if it was, real sugar and not artificial in some way. I had to slowly move those out. And I found that when I was thirsty, if I drank water instead of soda, which is completely, it's like sweetened salt water, it was doing the same thing. It was pulling everything out of me as the water softener salt in my tap water. That it just, I wasn't getting ahead. So I started to, when I was thirsty, drink water first, and then if I wanted something else, if I still wanted something else, then I would. And I started to make that a habit with things like coffee or things like tea. If it wasn't herbal tea, the first thing that I would do is say, if I'm thirsty, if I want to have something to drink, I'm going to drink a glass of water first. And then if I still want this other thing, then I'll have it. So I'm not denying myself. I'm still working with the psychology of how I work and what I am. So these are different tips and tricks, and I'm sure you've got some of your own out there as well, of how you've been able to stay hydrated. But what I found was, when I made sure I kept the water level in my body up, when I kept it up, my mood leveled out too. I triggered less. I got less angry at people. I was able to forgive more. And water was a really big key for my mental and emotional health. When I was dehydrated, my body was already stressed out. And so any additional stress, I felt everything. Any additional stress would send me off the deep end. I had no patience, I had no tolerance. As I said, I used to wake up and be furious and angry at the world and, ready to fight back in some way. Or if I was able to get to a level place, somebody would say one thing or look at me wrong or be joking with me, and I would be off the deep end. And so hydration, making sure that your body isn't stressed out, is what contributes to our mental and emotional health. Hugely. They're finding that connected to anxiety and depression is inflammation in your body. And when your body doesn't have enough hydration in it, then it's inflamed. And it not only aches, it doesn't digest well, your body doesn't heal itself well, and your mood then, because of the inflammation in your body, tanks. You get depressed, you get anxious, you get angry, you trigger fast, you're ready to fight back. You want to put those posts on Facebook, about your opinions about things. You want to be the one who talks first of the conversation because you've got something to say, and it's important that you say it, and you're emotional and passionate about this. And I always thought I was just oversensitive. I always thought that, well, I've got a really sensitive nervous system, and I do. But the bigger problem was that my body was stressed out because it wasn't getting its basic needs met. And so when you start getting that basic need, and it sounds so simple, when you start getting that basic need met, then your body is happier. Your body is better able to cope with all the normal life changes that happen. Before something would go wrong and it would upset me and I'd be in a sense of fight or flight, for at least half a day. When I make sure that I keep pushing good fluids into my body, stuff comes my way, people can attack me. People can tell me that I'm a bully, or they can tell me that I'm mean, or they can hurt my feelings, or they can make fun of me. And I can look at them and say, wow, that's really interesting. I don't trigger nearly as much as I used to. And because of my past, I had a lot of triggers. I had a lot of stuff going on. People just tend to look at me sideways, and suddenly I was off the deep end. So taking care of that physical piece cleans up a huge amount of your mental and emotional health. So if you feel that you've been wasting time or wasting your life getting upset about things that you really don't want to get upset about, you want to live your life, you want to be happy, start looking at the physical components of this. Start looking at what are you doing physically to yourself that's stressing your body out so it can't handle emotional stresses or can't handle the everyday issues or other people's issues. I've become one of the more balanced, healthy people that I know. As a good friend of mine says, more self-actualized than a lot of people. And it's not because I'm this brilliant, amazing person who's had connections to spirit since I was little, or who've had these downloads of information. And it's wonderful when people do. I'm not like that. But what happened was I started to take care of my physical self. And when I did that, I became more enlightened. I became more integrated and aware. I could see past my own emotion and past my own problem, and look at people as people. Look at them as their spirit or their soul, or that this is the issue that they're working through, and not have it affect me. So I went the physical route in order to affect my mental health, just because it was so much easier. And I'm finding the better I take care of me, and as I said, hydration is such a key piece. The better I take care of me, the more spiritual, the more connected to spirit, the more emotionally healthy I get, the more peace I find, the more able I am to meditate and to focus, the more able I am to sleep. All of those sorts of things. So if you're sitting here looking at me and saying, well, it would be really great, to drink more water, but I can't drink water before bed, or I can't drink water first thing that I wake up, or, I can't do this or I can't do that. That's cool. I totally get it. The point is, let's take a look at you. Let's take a look at how you work, what your beliefs are, what your ideas are. It's not about willpower. You aren't a failure. You aren't broken. It's that you need to figure out how you're wired, either nature or nurture. You have to figure out how you're wired and work with it. Work in tandem with it. Stop judging yourself for not being good enough, or not doing all the things that you should do. Oh, great, another thing I need to do, another to-do list on how to be healthy. That's very normal and human. But water and hydration is so important. It's so key to your mental and emotional health that you have to say, what are my issues? And take all of your judgmentalism away from them. Say, what gets in the way of me feeling good? For me, it was, I had to be doing something else, and it had to be convenient, and I had to give myself permission. And when I did that, then my hydration went up. And then it sort of just built on one another. There's this great commercial that came out like not 6 months ago, probably about a year and a half ago. And it started with a woman who ate something healthy in the day and for breakfast, and then the next thing she ate was healthy, and the next thing she ate was healthy. It was building blocks. And then they showed a day where she started out with a donut, and then, well, I ate the donut, so I might as well eat this. Well, I ate this, so I might as well eat that. I mean, the whole day was a wash. You just had to start again the next day. It's the same thing with something like hydration. If you say, I'm going to start out with a glass of water, first thing I'm going to do, then the next choice you make is healthy, and the next choice you make is healthy. It takes you on a spiral up rather than a spiral down. So if you start your day with a good choice, then you will probably continue to make more good choices. That's just how it works. And so when you make those good choices, however you need to con yourself into it, however you need to convince yourself that this is the way to do it, that, maybe you're lazy, maybe water isn't convenient, maybe you don't like the taste of water, maybe, there's all these sorts of reasons. But really what you're doing is you're making yourself crazy. You're making yourself nuts and feel nuts physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You're stressing yourself out and pushing yourself over the deep end. And you'll never, well, I don't want to say never, but it'll be so much harder to get any traction, to move forward in any way, to feel better, to actually be in a better place, to be able to use more of your brain. Your water, your brain needs so much water to function, and so do your cells, and so does your nervous system, and your whole electrical system. Everything does. So it's okay if you find reasons why you don't want to do it. Be honest with yourself. Look at those reasons and work around them, problem solve them. Say, okay, if this is what I do, how do I make it work for me? Because once you do, your mental health, your emotional health, and everything else will start to spiral up. It's an important, really good step. And you will be surprised and happy and pleased with the positive effects you start seeing over the day and the weeks and the months and the years when you start making that a priority. And it's one of the biggest priorities you can have. So that's to help keep us all on track. I am done for today. Thanks for joining me. I have a root canal I have to get to, so it was a little bit earlier and a little bit shorter than normal. And I'm so glad you could join me. If you love this, go to inspiremassage.com and sign up for our daily replays and inspirations, because it helps keep us all on track. I want to help raise everybody up. I want to get us from this sick feeling, and angry and hurt and depressed and anxious and stressed out and fight or flight world and society that we live in, that we were trained and taught that this is what we should accept, and start to move us all up. Because when we all start feeling better, then the world becomes a much better place. And when you can start helping the people that you love, that are emotionally angry and depressed and anxious in your life, and you can start moving them towards feeling better, then your whole life gets better. Because not only are you now a happy and healthy person, the people around you are happy and healthy too. So if that's one of the ways, one of the tricks you need to use is I'm helping you drink more water, and because I'm helping you drink more water, it'll help me drink more water. Use it. If you have to help somebody else along the way in order to motivate you, use it. Look at all of your fears, all of your problems and issues and anxieties, and you're welcome, Erin, and use it to motivate you and move you in the direction that you want to go. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'm Rita Hickman. Thanks for joining me. Bye.